Well, hey there, Carrie here. And today's episode is the launch of the new branding of the Diet Disruptors podcast. See, it's been a journey, it's been a story. And I thought today's episode would be a good one with this launch to be able to reintroduce myself to you, to help you get to know where I've been, who I am, what I do, and most importantly, why I do it. We've rebranded the podcast to be a part of Carrie Lupoli. See, over the years, I have evolved as an entrepreneur, as a coach, as a person. And we've really made the decision as a team in terms of the people that work for me that because I have multiple brands, because I do a whole lot of things now, that it made sense for this podcast to live in the carrielupoli.com world versus the world before, which was really around my private practice. My private practice was my brand for so many years. And because now I do so many other things, I have a supplement line. I have a brand called PFC3 where we train doctors and health pros and trainers and nutritionists and dietitians in the type of work that we do in our approach. I have my private practice for personalized coaching. I have my speaking and my writing. And so it made sense that the podcast live over where I live in Carrie Lupoli world because there's so many aspects of my different brands that I want to be able to talk about and share. And it really is all around disrupting the diet and food industry, that it's about disrupting our thoughts and our beliefs that have controlled us for so long to probably not show up for ourselves the way that we could. Uh, you know, I am all about being unapologetically disruptive. As an 8 on the Enneagram, if you don't know it, is one of the most powerful self-reflection tools, resources that I've ever come across. I'm going to do a whole episode on that at some point. But as an 8 on the Enneagram, I am assertive. I can be aggressive in an unhealthy version of me, but I'm also known, like other 8s on the Enneagram, to have the potential to be a leader and inspiring, motivational. And for someone like me, I want to start movements. I want to help people to do things in a way that they don't normally do. But the beautiful thing about Nate is that I'll also call you out on it. I am not afraid of a difficult conversation. And I think when it comes to what we need in our lives, why we need it, what we do every day and why we do it, what we really want out of life, and what we're really here for, it takes somebody that is unapologetic because they are going to care so much about you that they're going to tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear. I'll say this all the time. My husband's a 2 on the Enneagram, which means he's a helper. An 8 is a challenger. And my husband will say something and he'll be really animated about what somebody he feels like needs to hear or what somebody did and how he wanted to respond. And I say, well, did you tell them that? Did you say that to them? And he's like, well, no, I didn't say that. And it floors me because I always say it. If I feel like it needs to be said, I can't not say it. In fact, I've tried. I've actually said to myself, Carrie, don't say anything. Don't say anything. Carrie, nope, don't say anything. And next thing I know, I'm like, I'm saying it. I'm like, oh. But I have learned over the years as I've become the healthiest 8 or trying to become the healthiest 8 I can be of how I can say things in a way that people understand it is really out of love. If you know 8s in your life that are challengers, that aren't afraid of a fight, that, really try to get people to think their way, then you know that they can be a little intimidating. They could also be difficult and they could be a real challenge to love. However, one thing that you need to know about people like me, 8s, is that we are all heart. There might be like a hard shell on the outside, but we're like an M&M where we're like really soft on the inside. And everything we do comes out of a place of deep caring for other people. And that's who I am. This podcast has been around for almost 5 years. And it was a dream of mine to start, but I don't know what I was doing really. I just was like, I'm just gonna figure it out. And that's how I do a lot of things. But I also become really reflective and I always want to make things better. Not for me per se, but because as an educator, which is how I was trained, it's what I did for more than 20 years in schools. I am so passionate when I latch on to something that I want other people to know about it. I want to teach them. And I always feel like God in some ways has had this uh given me this ability to explain things in a way that seems to make sense. I see things in a way that I think is rational and simple. I used to think that I wasn't very smart because I saw things in such a simple way. And what I realized over the years and as I'm entering my 50s, it's actually a gift to feel like I have the ability to see things in a very simple way. And that's what this podcast really is all about, to be able to help you hear things in a way that you might not have heard about it before. Be your best friend that's going to tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear, and help you get out of your own way. Because, like, it is just as I'm entering in the second half of my life, I'm now an empty nester. I'm turning 50. I just, I, it's amazing how fast it all went by. And I can get caught up in that and feel like I miss it and I'm losing time and it's going so fast. Or I can just choose to embrace what I have in front of me and not waste any more time. And that's what I want to make urgent for everybody. We have one life container, our body that we're given. And in order to actually do the things that we were put on this earth to do, we have to take care of that life container. And I definitely did not see it that way for the majority of this first half of my 50 years. It wasn't until I almost was 40 where I was so distraught with my body and my confidence and so frustrated with how it was showing up for me, or so I believed. And I just always wanted to be different, look different, not have the curly hair, not have the skin issues that I was born with, not be the size that I was, whether I was too small or too big, whatever it was, I was always looking to be different. And it wasn't until this last decade where I just started to recognize that this is the life I have been uniquely gifted. And it is my responsibility not to compare it to others, but to make the best of it that I can. I am in control of my life. I am in control of my decisions. Now, I may not be able to control my circumstances, but I can always control my response. And as a behavior specialist for years, when I worked with kids with behavioral disorders and with behavior plans, I was so fascinated by the concept that behavior was actually pretty simple. It, it, the kids that some of the teachers felt like they just couldn't figure out or that were such a challenge and they were always, quote, misbehaving. That was like my passion because I knew, again, somehow, like I saw it in a very simple way that there were only two reasons why kids behaved. It was to gain something or to avoid something. And once I could figure that out, I could then help them make decisions with some accountability to get them back onto the right path. And what I know is that because time is so precious, if we just continuously make decisions that are just leading us down a path we don't want to go, we end up looking back on our life and we just think, oh, how much wasted time. My biggest fear, as you get to know me a little bit more, as we kind of reintroduce yourself to Carrie Lupoli, The thing that keeps me up at night, the thing that I think about more than anything is that one day I'm going to be done with this life on this earth and I'm going to be up in heaven and God is going to look at me and say, you did good. You know, you listened to me sometimes. You always tried to do the right thing as much as you could. But gosh, I had so much more planned for you. And I don't want to leave anything out on the table. And while I am obsessed with balance, I'm also equally obsessed with productivity. And some people think I just work all the time. A lot of people think that. If you ask anybody in my family, they're just going to tell you I think all the time. My mind is like 100 tabs open at once. But the truth is, I work out every day. I sleep at least 8 hours. I sleep 7 to 8 hours a day. I make time for myself. I don't actually start working until 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. I don't actually really work on weekends, but I am productive all the time. I'm just really intentional with my time because I respect it so much. I want to be productive. Now, what does productive look like? Sometimes I know that being productive means I am at rest. Being productive means I am outside getting vitamin D, doing a really long walk, and just getting my thoughts in order. Being productive might mean sending out, a bunch of emails or batch producing social media, writing articles, doing interviews, writing speeches. Or it might mean having dinner with my family with our cell phones away. All of that is productive to me. And I love that. Whenever I wake up in the morning and I do my morning time and I do it every single day, I don't even know why I write it anymore because I have this little part on my planner that says, how do you want to feel today? And then at the end of the day, it says, how did you feel today? And I try to reflect, I bookmark my day like that. And almost every single day I write productive and balanced. My word for 2024 was balance because when I feel balanced, I am also productive. And that's just a really big part of who I am. So while people might say you work all the time and I feel like they say it like a negative, I just want to make the most of this life all the time. And that's what I want to do. So a little bit more about me. And I think it's interesting because I haven't talked about my body, my weight, but I have a story around it. But when we talk to women, it's just so crazy to me because I'll tell women to tell me about themselves, and very often they will tell me about their weight. I know more about how much a woman weighs and all the diets that they've been on and their feelings about their bodies and their relationship with food than I know about who they are. And I think that that's a really important piece to think about. Like, who are we? And as I work to rebrand the podcast and rebrand my website and visit all of the pieces of who I am, it's like there was a time for so long that who I was so cemented in what I looked like that if you look at pictures of me when my kids were little, I just had this conversation with my sister-in-law. There were times that I just felt skinny enough to be worthy. And there were times that I definitely didn't. And I never told anybody about that. My husband didn't know. My friends didn't know. My sister-in-law didn't know. She even said, I had no idea. But if you go back and look at pictures of me, if I am behind my kids, that was a moment where I did not feel I deserved or should be in front. And if there are times that I am in front, it is because I was skinny enough in my brain that I was worthy to be shown. And if we're honest with ourselves, how many of us feel that same way? And if your daughter came to you and said that, or your son for that matter, you would work really hard to try to undo that thinking. But you kind of got to ask yourself, like, is that me? Is that true about me too? When I talk to women, when my team talks to women, when I am speaking, so many people say, I want to lose weight. And I'll say, why? And Let's say because I just feel like when I'm at a lower weight, I'm going to be healthier and I'm going to feel more confident. I want to feel better in my body. I want to feel better in my skin. I want to feel better in my clothes. And I get that. I do. I totally get that. But I think we're fooling ourselves when we think that is getting to a certain number on a scale is going to unlock magically confidence, empowerment, a mindset of belief that you can versus a mindset that you're not worth it. Your clothes are tight because your clothes are too small for you, not because you're too big necessarily. Now, that being said, we'll get into my beliefs around weight and health and all of that. But I always say there are plenty of larger women that exude confidence and a lot of smaller women that have no confidence at all. I think about Christy Brinkley and the selfie that she posted this year, where when she was 70 in her closet in a bra, and she was like, I'm finally at peace with my body. And that floors me because she was the person I wanted to look like. If I'm more like her, then I would be confident. And I think that's the idea of like comparison is a thief of all joy. And it's so true. We compare ourselves to our former selves. We compare ourselves to what we want ourselves to look like. We compare ourselves to other people, and it just leaves us downright frustrated and hopeless. But what if we didn't? What if we identified who we were and unapologetically accepted the pieces of ourselves that we know we could do better with, the pieces of ourselves that we know are not like others, the pieces of ourselves that we know are not necessarily quote unquote like the norm, that might be atypical, and say, I am unapologetically me. I am bold and I am me. And being bold and balanced is you can only be bold and balanced if you are you. So I get back to the concept of how women will just say like, I know so much more about their weight and their weight loss journey than I know about them, because that defines us. And if we just keep going after weight loss, especially for the wrong reasons, we are going to be so stuck constantly chasing this. One, because we don't know what to do. Let me be very clear. The diet industry does not want you to be successful. Why would they? Then you're not going to keep coming back to them. I had a client once that told me she went to Weight Watchers 17 times. Can you imagine like hiring a service in your home? Let's call it an electrician who did not actually fix the problem that you hired them to do, and you hired them back 17 times. See, the diet industry has us believing that it was our fault, that we were the problem, that we didn't have enough willpower, when in all reality, every single diet out there requires your body to be at a deficit. Since when does anything thrive in a deficit? It doesn't. And that just being at a deficit and then quote unquote, cheating on your diet, binging and going back and forth with starvation and then finally eating. And you're on this incredibly awful and debilitating blood sugar roller coaster, which not only is wreaking havoc on your body, but it's wreaking havoc on your soul and on your mind. And it causes you to believe that is your mission on earth, like that you were put on this earth to find the right diet. And the minute you think that a Weight Watchers, a Noom, a Jenny Craig is out for your best interest, then I need you to think again, because they need to make sure that what you do doesn't work so you can keep coming back. That is the entire premise of Ozempic. I mean, they're saying it. You have to be on it for the rest of your life or the weight will come back. Oh. So we got to really think about who we are, what we want, but most importantly, why we want it. So as I've gotten into this journey of self-discovery and realized I can't keep comparing myself to people, I have to be unapologetically me. What do I want and why do I want it? Originally, when I started off in my journey, it was because my two girls at 5 and 6 years old started talking about calories, and why I didn't eat the pizza. I am not a fan anymore of not eating the same meals as my kids. I am a fan of making sure that my kids understand nutrition, blood sugar stabilization, what our bodies need, that we're a refuel as you go machine, and that we are eating and learning and empowering ourselves together. But when my kids started talking about calories at 5 and 6 years old, that's what scared me. That's what got me down a path of saying, okay, what I've been doing isn't working. And thank God I stopped just doing the same thing over and over again, which is, we know, right? The definition of insanity is just doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And when my kids were finally like, like hit me over the head with their talk about calories, and I knew I had to figure something out differently than what I was doing, I also had to figure out my why. What was I chasing? I was chasing weight loss. I was chasing looking a certain way. I was obsessed with that. I had an eating disorder. Like I just wasn't looking at life in the way that I needed to. And when I started really believing, okay, well, first of all, I have to change my family tree. I have to start doing things differently. So my kids didn't grow up with the same disordered thinking that I did and beliefs about their bodies and their worth. But how do I change that when that's what I believed? So I had to go on a deep dive journey of self-discovery to really figure out what I wanted. I wanted my kids not to believe the same things I believed, but that wasn't going to be enough. What did I really want out of my life? Do I really want to spend my time chasing a number on a scale? Or do I want to be able to live a purpose that God actually has for me? He's not going to say one day when I die, oh man, I had so much more planned for you. Do I want to have people have to take care of me when I'm in my 80s or 90s, if I even get that far in life? And I realized I want to love my body so much the way I love my kids and my husband and my family, because I show up for my husband and my kids and my family. And I want to love myself as much as I love them. So I show up for myself, because I knew that the way I was showing up for myself was just self-sabotage after self-sabotage. And that's where my why started evolving. And what's amazing is that as I got healthier for the right reasons, as I understood what my body needed, as I stopped putting myself at a deficit, as I stopped rewarding myself with food and started balancing my blood sugar and making sure the nutrients I was putting in my body was absorbing into my body and actually causing my cells to thrive, not to be dysfunctional, then I just wanted to do that. It became who I was, not just what I did. And that's what makes me, I think, in the identity of who I am, is I am somebody that works so hard to be productive and balanced in every aspect of my life. A balanced body is a body that can handle, you know, going off plan, or, having an appreciation meal, fueling my soul. That's balance. Balance doesn't mean chicken and broccoli is my food of choice. Doesn't mean that I'm miserable. It means I'm satisfied. And I am in a place where, because I'm satisfied, because I'm balanced, I want to be able to serve and help others. But when we keep going after weight loss, and weight loss becomes the obsession, first of all, we can't control how much weight we lose. FYI, you can't control how much weight you lose and the rate that you lose it. You can only control your behaviors that might lead to weight loss. But if you keep going down weight loss, you're going to keep going down the paths of the diet industry, where you put yourself in a dieting roller coaster, which causes a blood sugar roller coaster, which actually at the end of the day causes metabolic disease, and everything that you say you want, you will never get. But what we actually have to be thinking about and doing is around showing up for ourselves, the behaviors daily that are going to get us to what we want to do, where we want to be. Your blood work is only going to improve as fast as it improves. I don't know how fast you'll lose weight, but that isn't the goal. Divorcing yourself from that result and saying, I need to be the best version of me, the healthiest version of me. What do I do? What does the healthiest version of me do? What do I say? What do I think? And what do I believe? When those are the things that we're focused on, Now we have a roadmap for how I'm going to show up every day. When I divorce myself from a scale, divorce myself from the conversation that my value is based on what I look like, that I am not allowed to be in a picture front and center if I don't look a certain way, well, then you're going to show up for yourself in a different way, because here's what I know. If you are obese, if you are overweight, if you have blood work issues, if you have cravings, if you have energy issues, if you are not sleeping, if you have any symptoms that go along with metabolic dysfunction, like 93% of Americans have, then you are not going to be able to live your purpose. Yes, I want you to be able to be at an optimal weight. What your definition of optimal weight and what your body's definition of an optimal weight are may be different, but I want this country to be healthier. 80% of our medical costs are due to a metabolic disease. Metabolic disease is all based on the foundational root issue of blood sugar stabilization, prolonged dysregulated glycation. And when I say I don't want people dieting anymore, when I say I want you to love your body, it's because honestly, I'm not a fan of the whole body positivity movement, because the body positivity movement says you should just eat whatever you want, do whatever you want, be whatever size you want, and nobody should ever make you think different. Now, I think you should be whatever size you are and recognize that your value is just the same, that nobody should ever shame you for a size, and you need to be the healthiest version of yourself. I know that in pictures of me when I was quote unquote skinnier, I was not healthy. I just saw pictures of somebody at a bodybuilding competition, and I thought, you are at one of the most unhealthiest times of your life, and you're going to look back and realize it in like 20 years. It's health versus weight. But I know that you need to love yourself through every single part of it and show up for yourself. That's who you have to be. That's who I am. That's who this brand is. And whether I'm working with health pros, doctors, nurses, to be able to, nutritionists, dietitians, to be able to understand how to teach stuff like this to their own clients, or in my own private practice where I'm working with clients directly, which is not very many, by the way. We keep that to a minimum because I can't. Or if I'm on stage speaking to you, I want you to be the healthiest version of yourself. Yes, for most of us, for most of Americans out there, it means you're going to have to lose weight. But if you go after weight loss, you will always go down the wrong rabbit hole. If you go after health with blood sugar stabilization, nutrient absorption, and recognizing how your thoughts and your beliefs dictate your actions and doing it for the right reasons, yeah, the weight loss comes. But as your best friend that's going to tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear, I am going to tell you that this is a process that never ends. This is a journey of self-discovery that doesn't have a 30-day challenge associated with it, that doesn't have a guarantee in 2 weeks, lose 20 pounds. It doesn't have a thing where it's like, oh, I just have to go on a diet until vacation, or I'm just going to eat this way until vacation, or I need to lose 5 pounds to fit into this dress. That's not what I'm all about. That's not what you should be all about. You need to be in a place that shows up differently than you have up until this point, because let's be honest, are you where you want to be? And I can tell you right now that the answer should be no for everybody. The answer is no for me. I'm always up leveling. I'm always researching. And that's why this podcast is so important to me, because I want to share with you all the things that I'm learning, all the people I'm talking to, how I'm continuously up leveling. But you got to be where you are, be ready and willing and able wherever you are in your journey. And it is at a 1% growth each day. 1%. If you can recognize the power of 1%, consistency over time, that's the key to being productive and balanced. That's the key to taking care of your life container, because let's be honest, you are not staying the same. I'll say this all the time. I'll say, like, what are you going to do if you keep doing what you're doing? And people will inevitably say, well, I mean, I'll just stay stuck where I am. I'm like, you will not stay stuck where you are. Nothing stays where it is. Even stagnant water turns toxic if you're left it alone for long enough. You will either go in the direction of 1% decline or 1% incline. I want to be in the side of progression, so we're never done. Again, that's why this podcast is so important to me. I now have 2 girls that are in college that, I mean, life isn't perfect. Oh, holy cow, are they in a better place at 18 and 19 than I was at their age? I know I was so afraid of food. I was so afraid of gaining weight because if I did, I was worthless. And that's not their mindsets. And I love that. They are empowered, they are strong. And it's only because I changed my mindsets, my beliefs, my why. And if you have kids that are older or grandkids and you're like, oh my gosh, it's too late, it's never too late. As long as you are on this earth, you need to be pushing towards that purpose that you were put on it for, so that one day when you're up in heaven, God looks at you and says, yes, you did it. You did the things that I wanted you to do. And that's only going to come when you are balanced, when you are productive, when you are the healthiest version of yourself. Because otherwise, if you are not, you are distracted by all the ailments, all the symptoms, all the stress, all the anxiety, all of the brain fog, for goodness sakes. So I'm not about the body positivity movement in the way that it is set up, in the way that we are set up for failure. But I am in the movement of loving yourself so much that you show up for it so you can show up for others and live your purpose. That is who I am. And I am going to be throughout this journey your best friend that's going to tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily that what you want to hear. So, if you are into it, if you are ready, what I need you to do is to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts, and I need a review. I need you to write what this podcast does for you, what the message is. And that allows me to be able to get feedback, but also allows others to be able to see this podcast and be able to hear it and learn from it. So, wherever you are on your journey, I am here for you unapologetically. And I am going to continue to show up and disrupt everything you think you know about what your body needs, how to show up for yourself, and how to love yourself so much that you can love others more genuinely and more comprehensively. All right, until next time, hit a review, subscribe. Let's go.